Hi, Danny. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm quality, thank you. Well, let me move this around. Hello, I'm Harry Robinson, and this is the All Out Attack podcast.
What? Oh, Autumn's here, by the way.
My guest today is Danielle Phelps, a woman born into the Westboro Baptist Church, the outspoken and controversial religious sect in America that was founded by Danielle's grandfather, Pastor Fred Phelps.
I wasn't, cat? I wasn't.
Whilst Danielle has left the church, it is still in operation today at the church's compound in Topeka, Kansas. The Phelps family have been referred to as the most hated family in America, notorious for their loathing of homosexuality, celebration of tragedies, and picketing of funerals, particularly those of soldiers who have died in combat. Do you want me to start then? I'll jump right into it. Danielle is now an openly gay woman and a former US Marine. Everything her family stood against. At her house only 5 minutes away from where she grew up, accompanied by her supportive girlfriend Autumn and a wandering kitten, I connected with an inspirational person that has had to overcome indoctrination and sacrifice family to be true to who she is. I hope you enjoy. Just for context's sake, because I know there's a lot of people in the UK or people who I've spoken to who are blissfully unaware of the Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah.
In your words, who are the Westboro Baptist Church?
My words. Well, I know a lot of people call it a cult, and in many ways it is, but like just growing up in it, all it was to me was just like a church, like a family church that has very specific beliefs. And in my opinion, they share a lot of the same beliefs with other Christians. They're just more open about it. So that draws a lot more, hatred. And yeah, I mean, I don't think they're that much different from anybody else, but they're just very vocal about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. In terms of, do you reject the kind of beliefs that they have, though? No, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that, you mentioned that people brand the Westboro Baptist Church as a cult, rightfully or wrongfully in your view. Do you feel the kind of, obviously with Fred Phelps at the top for so long, do you feel it was cultesque in the way that it was essentially a whole, 75 group of people working towards a head of the group, if you get what I mean?
Oh, of a cult? Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can see that. Because my grandfather did start the church after, I think he like graduated West Point or something like that, and then got super into like the religious Reformation here in America, and then moved to Kansas and then started the church. And it kind of just turned into a big like his children, obviously only the males, the married men of the family were allowed to have any opinion in it. Women, we weren't allowed to talk at all. Hang your head low, like you have no rights, basically. So yeah, basically in a lot of ways it was cultish. Yes.
Because in terms of your grandfather's kind of, do you still see him as your grandfather? I think that's important to mention. Like me referring to him as,
yeah, he's my grandfather.
Yeah, of course. In terms of, he was sometimes quite elusive in terms of the maybe the left-wing media or documentarians who would come visit. What was the real Fred Phelps like as a person, or especially with his grandkids and
his grandchildren? For sure, he was very sweet, man. Media wise, they only ever saw that like very cold side of him, like no I don't know, like dead in the eyes almost. Like he was just like, all right, this is what I believe, and that's all you're gonna get from me. But in reality, in person, he wasn't like that. He was very warm, and he loved to talk. He loved to, I don't know, he just made you feel very loved. And like accepted in a way, even if you were like a troublemaker, because I was kind of a troublemaker as a kid. So yeah, I didn't get a lot of the attention I got as a kid was usually pretty negative, but from him it was very, very warm and soft and kind.
Yeah. Was that replicated across the board with all members
Yeah.
of the church? Yeah.
Yeah, you could probably ask any one of my siblings or my cousins, and they would most likely say the same thing. Like I never saw him really harsh towards any one of us.
Obviously, he was quite an eccentric man with his beliefs, but do you feel in that regard that he was quite hard done by in terms of the media rep that he got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really. What? Oh, Autumn's here, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, Autumn's TikTok is how I found out about you and your story.
Yeah.
Mm.
And a lot of people are finding out about me that way, because I wasn't like my part of the family wasn't very like, my father's pretty well known, like Tim Phelps is my father, so he's kind of well known, but not as much as say like Cheryl Phelps-Roper, like she's very vocal. So nobody really has really heard of me, but people that do hear of me are usually pretty I don't know, what is it? Obsessed, I guess. Yeah, that's what Autumn says. Like, oh, this is funny. Like, come from an anti-gay, anti-military family, and then you end up being gay and in the military. It's just, I guess.
It was so iconic.
Yeah, iconic.
I had to make a TikTok about it.
Yeah.
Do you like the? I mean, I was going to use the word notoriety then, but it's more like viral fame, kind of. Do you like that side of it, or did you like going under the radar a bit?
Well, I usually, because I have a bit of trauma from my childhood, so I usually don't. It's not that I have an issue with talking about it. It's just coming, like, I don't know, specific things about my childhood. I get overwhelmed easily.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I'm not comfortable talking about it necessarily. Just like I have to like take a step back and like slow down. So I don't mind the, I guess, viral aspect of it on TikTok. It's just I have to like approach it at my own speed.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is with kind of, especially with something like the Westboro Baptist Church, which has had so much coverage, and I mean, Louis Theroux's kind of a bit of a cult hero in the UK and brought the church to light in the UK. And I think people can get very obsessive over, say, the church in terms of, you know, especially people who got out of it, because if anything, they're the most accessible people. You know, you won't find Shirley on TikTok.
Yeah.
In terms of your childhood in general, what is the kind of crux in the daily life of growing up in the church then?
Well, honestly, it was a lot of it was a blur, but when I think back on it, the main things I remember were like we were constantly working. Like it was always go. You want to say it or something? I just remember like the summers mainly. If we weren't in school, obviously, summer break, we'd wake up early. So like 6 o'clock every morning, we were all awake. We'd have like a family prayer, led by my father. And then if you had a job, you went to work. But as a kid, obviously, you don't have a job. So we were like assigned different jobs around the compound, people like to call it. So usually I'd go out and like water all the plants around the block. That's a lot of plants. So spend hours just out there watering. And then after that, it was usually like a late morning picket somewhere around the city. We'd all go to the picket. If there was houses, so like pretty much all the houses that we lived in around the block were built by everyone in the family. So at 10 years old, I started construction. My dad was like the leader of the like electrical aspect of all the houses. So I pretty much became like a rafter monkey, like they like to call it. So I did a lot of the climbing around in the tight spaces, like just a lot of manual labor.
Mhm.
Always kept you busy so that you didn't have time to cause mischief basically. So, like they just kept us very busy, and then there was scheduled pickets every day, 2 or 3 pickets scheduled every day that if you were available you had to go to. So it was very monotonous, very like just schedule after schedule after schedule.
I can imagine. How did they decide who got to do or who did what pickets then, or was it just as en masse as many people as possible who were free?
Yeah, like usually the pickets inside the city, inside Topeka, that were like easy to get to. If you had a car and you were available, you went. So like they didn't care how many people went to those. But say you went outside, like say we went to a picket in Kansas City or some other state, you basically had to put your name out there, be like, hey, I am available to go to that picket. And then they would just pick like, it was almost like yeah, they like pick teams. They're like, yeah, you're cool to go. You're cool to go. Like they just like pick people that they're like, yeah, we're okay with you being seen at that picket. And then they would like send you off to those pickets.
Were there ever any pickets that they would tell people that they weren't all right to be seen at the picket?
I know a few times, like I said, I was a troublemaker. So like I'd be scheduled to go to a picket, like out of state or something. And then I would like get in trouble for something. Like, I don't know, like I had like an attitude for like a second. They're like, Danielle's got an attitude. She's not going to go to these pickets anymore. So they just like would take me off and put somebody else on the picket. So yeah, there were a few. I can't think of any specific ones, but
Yeah.
usually if you were just like like causing some type of issue, then they would be like, nah, you're good. You don't need to be seen out there.
What did you feel about the pickets I mean, you talk about being kind of a rebellious child in terms of causing mischief or what that. How were the pickets for, a young girl growing up?
Um, it was weird. It was almost kind of like Stockholm syndrome in a way, because you kind of wanted to be picked to go to the pickets because you wanted to be like kind of flying under the radar in a way, but like I don't know how to really explain it. Stockholm syndrome is the best way to explain it, but like you wanted to go to the pickets because you wanted to like make them happy basically, but at the same time, like in my head, because I knew at a very young age that I was.
Oh, Danielle.
There's people that see us out there and it hurts them like emotionally, and there's like I don't know, so it's weird.
You cut out a bit at the start there. What were you saying about that you knew from a very young age that?
Oh, I knew from a very young age that I was gay, so like it was like I had to keep that internalized. But at the same time, I was still trying to like people please basically my family. So I would want to go to the pickets, but at the same time, I like hated myself for wanting to go to the pickets because I knew I was hurting people.
I think that's very, because I think what a lot of people, when you see footage of the pickets, a lot of the time it's members of the public hurling abuse and then that kind of stuff. And I sometimes, as much as I fundamentally disagree with everything that they were picketing, and obviously you did too.
Yeah.
When you see children like yourself who were kind of getting the full brunt of it, even though I think people have got to have a bit more empathy in terms of the fact that some people are indoctrinated into this belief system, which they once they come of an age, they realize that they never wanted that belief system, and they feel
absolutely, and that's something that I've had issues with. Like going into the Marine Corps, people would find out about who I am, and then they would like make me feel bad about it, like it was my choice or something. Like I had no control over, like I was just born into this situation. I had like a whole conversation with this kid, like early morning. I was on watch, like in the field working, and we're sitting there talking. He was like begging me to tell him about my family. So I was like, okay, all right, fine. You just can't get mad at me, like, because I get like bad responses sometimes when I tell people about my family.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So I lay it all out there. I'm like, yeah, this is how I grew up. This is the situation. And then he'd be like, man, I wanted to go shoot every single one of them in the head, pull the trigger myself. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, it's still my family, dude. Like, it's still like that messes with me because like as much as what they've done is, you know, kind of fucked up in a way. Well, in a lot of ways, it's fucked up, but like it's still my family. And I still love them in a way. So it's, yeah, it kind of messes with me.
I think it's a strange kind of fetishization of it all, because I mean when you look at any of the also, you know, if you need a break or anything, please do say, because obviously I can see. And if you know if it's all good for Autumn to be off camera, you know, she can be on. Like, there's no rules for that as well.
No, I don't care, Autumn. You're sitting over there.
You're the star, not me.
Just because I saw the hand coming in, and I was like, you know, I don't want anyone to pull a muscle or anything.
No, I'm just kind of shaky because I had surgery, so I'm like a little.
And you have ADHD.
And I also have ADHD, so yeah, I'm a little shaky right now, but I'm okay.
Oh, well, I hope you know, I'm not going to pry or anything, but you know, I hope that it all goes well.
If I'm uncomfortable, I would say something.
Oh no, yeah, cool. Yeah, in terms of when you look at the people who have, I guess defected is the right word. I mean, they call them rebels in the church. I've yet to find any of them. I mean, especially Megan, who is the most famous, if you like, of people who've left the church. Not a single one of them seems angry or resentful or harbors any hatred towards the family, because it's still the family. But people, I think, don't realize the conflict. Does it bring you a huge conflict of emotions when you kind of realize that you don't agree with your family's beliefs, but obviously you still miss them because it's your family?
I think it's like any other family if you don't agree with your parents.
Well, yeah. Did you hear Autumn? I don't know if you heard her. It's just like any other family. Like, you don't share a belief with them, so like you have some kind of like, I wouldn't call it resentment. You're just kind of like, man, like it's almost kind of disappointing because you're like, I want better for you in a way. Like, I wish that you understood the impact that you're having on other people because of like your selfish thoughts, basically. Like, I don't harbor any hatred necessarily, but yeah, I just feel like disappointed. Like, I'm like, man, like we could be so good, but you insist on having this belief when, I don't know, like there's so much like love out there in the world, and then they are so intent on staying in this one spot and harboring all this hate in themselves, and then they just like take that hate and they're just throwing it out at everybody else. It's weird.
Yeah, I think from reading some of the stories, I mean, I'd love to get onto your stories as well in terms of how you left, but reading some of the other stories of people who've left, a lot of it seems to be that they were approached or they liaised with someone outside of the church and then kind of realized that there's a whole other world out there that isn't bad and negative.
Like Megan.
Yeah, exactly.
Megan, her husband, she met her husband on Twitter, and that's what, you know, got her thinking like, wait, this is questionable. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, he was always that source of light and love for her. So
going back to, because obviously you mentioned that if you're okay with talking about it, you mentioned that you always realized your sexuality from a young age.
Yeah.
How did you come to realize that in an environment that actively suppressed it?
Whoa.
I'll probably wait for myself. It's frozen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Harry, you good? You there?
Yeah, I'm still. Sorry. Yeah, I think we freeze up. I can still hear you though when you freeze up. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They didn't really. I don't know how to explain this part. I always knew, like, it's not like they hid like sexuality necessarily. Like, you know, like they're like, God hates fags, all this stuff. So like as a very young age, you're like, I know what a fag is, which was weird for a kindergartner knowing what a homosexual is, like in explicit detail, talking about like anal sex and stuff like that. At a very young age, I'm like, yeah, I know what all this stuff is. So like for other people, that's weird, but for my family, it was so normal. So then like I always, like, they were just telling all of us, obviously, like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then in third grade, I just like the first day of third grade, I just had this moment where I was like sitting with all these other like little kids, and that's weird to think of because I'm an adult now, but I'm sitting with these kids and I'm like, I like this little girl. And then I was like, oh, like that's wrong. Like my parents have told me, or my family's told me, like it's wrong to have these feelings for, same gender.
Mm-hmm.
But
Danielle,
I don't know.
I'm so sorry, Danielle. It cut out then again for the last like 20 seconds.
What's weird?
I think it was just after you said that about your family not agreeing with the same gender, or being shocked. What happens is it freezes and then it comes back, and I can tell it's like a very tender moment.
That's harsh. No. So yeah, I just like they're telling me constantly that this is wrong, and then seeing that in myself, I was just like, I'm attracted to these the same gender, and I'm like, this, it doesn't feel wrong, but with everyone around me telling me it's wrong, I felt like gross. I don't know. Yeah, so like I don't know. Them telling me it was wrong, I felt wrong, but honestly in myself, it didn't feel wrong. Like I felt like I was doing, like I was just being who I was.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It's a weird concept.
I can't begin to imagine how conflicting and confusing it is at that age to, especially in a, as you were saying, that you everything that you try and do is to try and please the people above you, but then you know fundamentally that such a big part of you is what they're picketing and they're against. Did you ever, and again please tell me if I'm prying too much, but did you ever tell anyone in the family your feelings growing up, or was it?
No. My big sister, I told her everything but two things in my entire life, and it was that I am gay and that I was planning on leaving. So I hid like that, this whole side of me, and it was hard growing up, but like it wasn't as hard as I think a lot of people would think it is. It was just like I always had that part of me, but I didn't mind keeping it to myself because it kind of just made me feel more comfortable with myself.
Yeah, I think it kind of dodges the conflict that it would have maybe caused. Yeah.
So no, I never told anybody, but I never even really had it coming out technically. It's not like I was hiding it necessarily. It's just like, because after I left home and like with the family members I have now, like I was ever just like, hey, I'm gay, by the way. I just as soon as I left home, I started living my life and I was gay. So like I never had to sit there and tell anybody, explain to anybody who I was. They just automatically accepted who I was. So it wasn't any like there was any like trip up in the transition necessarily.
When you left the church, I mean, you're talking about that now that you essentially start living your life. Does it feel more so like a completely new beginning?
Oh yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
It's a completely different life. Like a lot of things I just like have forgotten about my childhood, that the only reason I'll remember something is if like I have a family get together like with my siblings and they'll be like, oh my God, do you remember when this happened? And I'm like, I completely forgot. It's completely separate life. Like it's almost like a dream in a way. Like I don't remember it unless like I sit down and I actually like go step by step, like, year by year, like, oh, this year this happened. Like it's like completely different life. I'm a completely different person than I was then. I was very, very to myself, very shy. I'm still like, I'm an introvert for sure, but like I'm very like flamboyant. Like I'm very outgoing. I can be. So it's a completely different person, completely different life. And it was like that moment I left. There's like a couple day like transition period where I was like, okay, like this is how the real world works. But otherwise it was pretty easy transition.
Yeah. How did you come to the realization that you wanted to leave and were going to leave?
Well, I was thinking like, because obviously once you come of age, like 18 years old, you're able to make that decision. But 2 days before my 18th birthday, I ended up tearing my rotator cuff in my arm. So I was like, man, like all the plans that I did have to leave, like now I don't know if I'll be able to do that and like not struggle with it. So I forced myself to kind of like stick it out basically another year. So I didn't leave until a few weeks before I turned 19 because I needed to heal and I needed to actually come up with a plan to leave. But it wasn't ever really like a decision. I was just kind of like, all right, well, I'm not staying here. Like, why would I want to stay in this hateful environment, like doing stuff that's hurting people that, I don't know. Like, it wasn't even a question. It wasn't even a thought. I was just like, all right, well, I'm not meant to be here. Like, this is not my place to be. So, I worked for I worked for the county, like sports leagues and stuff like that. Yeah. So I worked as a scorekeeper and like site supervisor for like softball games and stuff like that. My boss, she was gay and I was very open with her about not wanting to be with the family anymore. So she opened up her house to me. So when I left home, I just moved all my stuff to her house, and she I don't know, she just made me feel very accepted. So I felt safe and comfortable leaving and just going to her. And I didn't tell anybody in my family. Like, it was the night of July 4th. So Independence Day.
Yeah.
All the fireworks are going off around Topeka, so nobody in my parents' house could hear me moving my stuff. Like, I was able, with all the noise, I was able to get everything down to my car without getting caught or heard. Got everything into my car and then, pulled out of the driveway, and that was that, leaving. And I just got to my boss's house and texted my parents, and I was like, hey, like, I don't want to stay. Like, this is not where I feel I'm supposed to be. And I don't want to be using resources like their money and stuff that you could be using to support my siblings. Cause I'm the 5th of 10 kids. So there's 5 kids underneath me that still need to get fed and everything. So, I didn't get any sleep that night. My mom texted me a few hours later, like she'd woken up. It's weird. It's like my parents had this vibe that something was off. So my mom woke up early and saw that I texted her, and all she said was like, hey, are you sure that this is what you want to do? And I was like, yeah, like, I don't, like, this is not for me. This is not right. And so that was that. She was like, okay. And at that moment, they're like, all right, you're no longer our daughter. Oh yeah, like the next day, like my dad pulled up in the truck, gave me all of my big furniture that I couldn't move, handed me a folder with all of my like legal documents and stuff, my passport, my birth certificate, everything. He's like, here. And that's the last interaction I had with my dad. He just was like, here you go. Closed the bed of the truck, got the truck, and drove off. That was the last thing interaction I had with my father.
Do you see that as a kind of, I mean, because in a kind of formal way in the church, if someone leaves, then they cut all ties and they're no longer a part of the family. But the fact that your dad turned up with all the stuff that you couldn't carry and all your documents, do you see that as a kind of supportive father, act of a supportive father, or was it just sheer, like, we don't want your stuff in the house?
No, not with my father. With him, it was more like, all right, well, that's fine here, because like being a troubled child, like I was a kid that was always causing issues. So there was always that thought, I guess, in my parents' head that I wasn't going to be staying. So I don't think it was necessarily surprising for them that I was like, all right, bye.
You weren't the first to leave.
No, I wasn't the first to leave, but like,
Of his kids, you weren't the first to leave.
I wasn't know that though. What was I saying? No, for him, it was more like, okay, here, I'm done. Bye, have fun, live your life. But the next day, like I had a lot of food that I left at my parents' house that I was the only one that ate, because I ate healthy compared to how the rest of my family ate. so my mom was texted me and she was like, hey, like none of us are going to eat this food. If you want to come pick it up on Sunday, while everyone else is out at the pickets, then I'll be here and I'll help you load it up. So I go to my parents' house. Obviously my dad's not there. He took, everyone else out to go to the Sunday pickets before church. So it's just my mom was there and my two youngest siblings were there, who I was very close with. So that was kind of hard. But
what was their reaction?
What was that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Then what was your reaction of your siblings when you arrived?
Well, like they knew that I was like, that's hard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. When you leave, obviously they tell everybody like, hey, they're gone. They're dead to us, basically. So I know that it was probably hard for them seeing me, but like there's no emotion because they don't understand that emotion. They don't understand exactly what's going on. So for me, it was emotional, but for them, it was probably like, ooh, like we're not supposed to talk to Danielle. So like they were looking at me and like just going about their business, but like they weren't allowed to like talk to me. They weren't allowed to like touch me, nothing. So it was weird. It was weird. It was like they didn't know who I was, but I did.
Yeah.
But so she had them help put all this food that none of them were going to eat just into a laundry basket. And then she helped me take it out to my car. So she puts it in my car. And this was the last interaction, like emotional interaction I had with my mother. So she helps me get the food in the car. And then she asked me again if this decision is truly what I want to do. And I explained to her again, like, yeah, like I don't want, no, I didn't tell her like, I'm gay, mom, I'm leaving. It was just like, because it wasn't even like that. It was honestly like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here. I don't want to use resources, your money. I don't want to rely on you anymore when you could be using those resources to better my siblings' lives. That was honestly how it was for me. So I just explained that to her. And she hugged me and she told me that if I ever wanted to come home that I could. And I knew that I couldn't because I knew that I was gay. So I was like, there's no way. Like, I'm just going to go live my life. And this isn't going to be a thing anymore. So it was like that final moment of having my parents. And then that was it. She hugged me and that was it.
I can imagine how hard that is. Do you need a break at all, or are you okay?
I'm okay.
I'm good. So what year was that then? So you were just before, so you were 18 when you left. Are you 24 now then?
I'm 25. I turned 26 in July. So I was just about to turn 19. It was the summer of 2014 that I left.
So what is that before or after your grandfather passed away?
It was the year that my grandfather died. So
yeah.
Gramps died, I don't remember what month, but earlier, like the beginning of 2014, he died.
What was the shift in the church?
Oh, that was that was an interesting time. So like we had known that he was sick and everything. He had dementia, but my family doesn't believe in mental issues. So
they call it demons, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, he's just losing his mind. Like, no, he's sick. Like he's sick. He's a sick man. So what they had done was like, he was staying in the church because it used to be that the church, was like separated in two halves, like the church side and the house side. And my grandparents still lived on the house side, and he was cared for there. But once he started getting real sick towards the end, they moved him out, and they had bought land. They bought one of the houses across the street from the church, across the street from where Cheryl lived, I should say. And they just moved him into that house and kind of like turned that house into like a little, like a containment center. It was weird. Like, They put the bed in the front room of the house and then like had cameras all over the house. So it was like he was just being watched.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would just go and like make sure that he was fed and cleaned, and that was it. They wouldn't like actually interact with him. So I'm sure like those last moments for him were scary because like he was alone. He was alone most of the time. When he died, obviously the whole world finds out, and it was like, you know how a grenade explodes underwater, so everything like expands and then everything sucks back in. That's what it was like the word of him dying got out to the world, and then all of these media outlets and everybody was like sucking in, and everyone was coming to the church and seeing. So the week or so after he died, it was crazy because we were constantly on watch around the block because people were coming, and the block was constantly surrounded by people. So we were like on guard the whole time, like trying to make sure that nobody was, trying to take advantage of the weak spot that we had hit in the church. So with that, then like the patriarchy, I guess, of the church, then we had like the elders of the church. So it was just like my grandfather that was like the leader of the church, and then they always had the elders, but the elders didn't really make any of the big decisions. Ultimately it was up to Gramps. But after he died, then it really was just the elders, so the married men of the family. So yeah, it was weird. Like a lot of things that were kind of kept like secret in a way kind of came out. So that's when a lot of people left. That's when, Megan had left before that, but still, like, it was around this time that a lot of people were leaving and like realizing like this wasn't the place to be. Like basically the church was falling apart.
Yeah.
And that's when they kind of locked down harder with like their beliefs, and like, I don't know. I wasn't a member of the church, so a lot of it I didn't even see. Like I went to the church, but I wasn't ever baptized, so I didn't get any of the insider information that like Grace and Megan have. They were actually in the middle of it, but I had to watch from the outside and seeing everything, not being allowed to come to the church meetings and stuff. It was weird. So the shift from when Gramps died to all, multiple men being in charge of what goes on at the church, it was weird. It was a weird power shift that I can't really explain.
Well, the kind of feeling that I got as a spectator of the documentaries and stuff like that was that it almost, the church, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, almost took very much a patriarchal, like really hit down on that idea of the man ruling the house, and
Yes.
Is that true? That
it almost like harshened in a way, because before is like we always kind of had our mother there to kind of like take the edge off a little bit. Like she was a very warm, loving woman. And then with this, this patriarchal shift, it was like, all right, no more like Mr. Nice Guy kind of thing. Like the father figures of all these households were like very, I don't know, it was like communication changed. Like it was almost like my childhood was over once my grandfather died. Because like you weren't allowed to be a kid anymore. It doesn't matter how young you were, it's like you weren't allowed at all to have these emotions that a regular child would have. Like you automatically have to look at the world like, like they believe like the world's ending constantly. The world's ending, like grow up. Like it was weird. It was just weird. Like your childhood's over. So
I can imagine. I mean, I'm not sure, obviously I know you were saying that you weren't privy to the insider information, and they do keep that very much under wraps. But as someone who was close to the blast is probably the best metaphor for it. Do you know if it's true that he was excommunicated from the church?
He was.
He was. Was that because of the incident with the
Quality
White
House?
House? Yeah.
Like it was already kind of a discussion from what I was seeing. Like because he was sick. Like he obviously started like talking different. He started, you know, viewing situations differently. And as soon as he started talking like that, everyone was like, oh my God, like the foundation of our church is falling apart essentially. And they're like, it doesn't matter if he started the church, like if he's the founder of this church, we still have to uphold the beliefs and the, you know, the foundation. So they're like, regardless of if this is our father, this is our, you know, our pastor, we need to kick him out. Like the where fell what am I trying to say?
The welfare.
Yeah, the where fell of our family basically was falling apart. So they're like, regardless, Gramps is out. Like he's out. It was a weird moment, and that's when they moved him to the house, and that's when he got really sick.
So for reference, was he well, I mean, whilst obviously he had dementia, was he saying things that possibly could have got him excommunicated before he went out into the
I'm not 100% sure on if before he'd gone out and had that incident with the quality house, what was being said or what was happening, because towards the end there, none of us were really allowed to see him. Like I said, it was like only Cheryl, our Aunt Cheryl was like the only one that really, and then our Aunt Liz, I feel like, was the only other one that really interacted with him. So none of us, at least from what I saw, because I wasn't technically a member, I don't know of anything that he was saying beforehand, but there were moments where somehow like he'd get out of the church, like it was like they were trying to keep him locked up in a way, locked up in the church, and then he would go on these walks around the block. Like he'd put his jacket on and his sunglasses and his hat, and he'd start walking around the block. And they would tell us, they're like, oh, Gramps is outside, everyone closed the doors. Like it was weird. It was like we were hiding from him. Like it was like he was trying to just walk around and like go see his family, and they're like shut down the church basically.
Yeah. How was that as a grandchild?
It was weird. It was like, it was kind of scary to me, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. Like I'm just remembering all this now. This is weird. But like it was honestly kind of scary, because I'm like, this is my grandfather. This is somebody that, you know, we're always like open to seeing, open to talking with, and now all of a sudden he decides to go on a walk on a nice day, and we have to lock the doors, close the windows, like we can't answer the door for our grandfather. This is weird. And then I think after those moments was when the incident happened where he walked out, you know, the front of the church and was talking to people outside the quality house. And then that's where like, all right, yeah, this is it. Gramps is done. Excommunicated him, moved him into the house, completely locked him down. He was locked inside that house.
Like a prisoner?
Yeah. It was weird. And like we couldn't say anything about it. We're just like, all right, this is what we're doing now. Like, it's like we just had to go with it.
I think for context, it's worth mentioning that the Equality House was a house set up by an LGBTQ charity that was a rainbow house, and then there was the one with the transgender flag painted on it next door, and he said something like, "You are good people."
Yeah, he said, "You guys are good people." Like I don't remember exactly the words that were said, but that like, he was just. What was that?
I was no, sorry. Did you see it happen, or was it just like talked about heavily in the church?
Yeah, it was just so my older sister is a member of the church, so you know she was experiencing all these things, and she's only a few years older than me, so I could imagine it was scary for her too. She would like tell me that these things are going on, and I'm like, this is weird, like this is scary, and she didn't know how to feel about it, but she was just, you know, obviously mirroring the reactions of like what our parents and our aunts and uncles were feeling, like, so she wasn't really allowed to feel her emotions. I don't know, it was weird. It was like she was a robot almost, because like she was telling me that these things are happening. I'm like, Vicky, like this is weird. But she's like, yeah, but it is what it is. Like he's, you know, he's in the wrong here. Like he's a heretic now, you know, all this stuff. And I'm like, this is our grandfather. Like this is the man that, you know, that we based our beliefs on, you know, like from what he's taught us, like this is what is weird. This is weird. Like this, I can't be the only one seeing this.
Well, it's a weird one as well, because as much as many people disagreed with your Gramps' views on the world and that kind of stuff. I mean, I myself have a grandparent with dementia, and I've seen how it fundamentally changes the kind of person that they are. So to hear that he was excommunicated and treated so horribly and locked away is awful. But do you feel that he generally had a change of heart when he spoke to those people, or that was deep inside him, or do you think that it was just the illness talking?
That's hard for me, because I don't know truly what was in his heart, what was in his mind, and him being sick. Like it could have just been a moment of clarity. Yeah, it could have just been a moment of clarity for him, where he was just like trying to reach out to somebody, but he had no access to anybody except for the people that he saw across the street from the church every day. So that was probably him trying to reach out and be like, hey, like, I'm sorry. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but knowing how he was, like, as my grandfather, not as the pastor, as my grandfather, he was a very sweet man. So I wouldn't put it past him to have been trying to reach out in that way, but I honestly could not say for sure.
I think it's ironic how. Oh, sorry. No, what I didn't
because in those last moments, we didn't get to interact with him. So
of course. I think it's ironic how in his last few months or whatever, with his illness, the people who were essentially there for him, that gave him the most attention, were the people who directly opposed everything that he stood for.
Yeah.
Before that, it's quite a strange one. But I'll move on. I'll move on from your grandfather. So after you've left, and you were talking about adjusting to life, how long was it before you decided that you wanted to go to join the military, which obviously the church fundamentally disagrees with again? And
let me think. So I left in July of 2014, and by February of 2016, I went to boot camp. Mm-hmm. So those few years there, it was kind of rough because I was in college, and I had to drop out of college because I was so depressed, anxious. My PTSD from my childhood was really bad. I jumped around a lot from house to house. I was homeless for a bit, living out of my car. It was hard. Mm-hmm. And then I was working at a gym, and I made a lot of friends, working at the gym, people that were in the military. I don't know, and I guess they really liked me, and they would talk about me with their friends and stuff. And then it just so happened that one of the guys that really liked me had his recruiter. He talked to his recruiter about me a lot, and she actually drove from Kansas City down to Topeka, and found me working in the gym and was like, hey, I've heard all of this stuff about you, and I think that you'd make a great Marine. And I was like, I'd never thought of joining any branch of the military. I'd known about the military because of my family, but I had literally never given it a thought of joining, because I was like, oh no, I'm not, because in my head I had this stigma that if you join the military, it's because you have nothing else to do with your life, like you're stupid or something. And I was like, that's not the case. That's not it. And then I also kind of felt, I was like, I've done all of these things to hurt people. I've hurt people, not willingly, just because of how I grew up. I've hurt members of society. I've hurt people in the military. I've just by things that I've held, not even necessarily said, because I never speak. I didn't have a voice there. But I was like, this could be kind of a way to, I guess, make up for all the hurt that I've caused. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, if you think that I'll make a good Marine, then yes, I'll do it. I was like, all right, we'll do this. And I had to go through a lot of background checks because of coming from my family. There was fear from the government that I could be a terrorist of some sorts. It was weird.
Really?
Yeah, they're like I had like 5 or 6 background checks, and they were like they swore that I was like trying to like
Infiltrate the military.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was kind of funny honestly, but I was like, no, I promise you I have nothing to do with this anymore. So like that's basically what the background checks were doing. It was like they're trying to confirm that I wasn't cat. I wasn't affiliated with my family anymore. And they had to lift the ban from, you know, how my family's banned from multiple countries to fly to and stuff. So they had to lift those bans for me and stuff. But eventually they're like, yep, you're good, you can join. So I went to boot camp, and did the thing there, and then I was a Marine, and it was hard. And some people, knowing who our family is, would see my name and, you know, somehow correlate the two, and then I'd be like, yep, that's my family. And then I'd either get bad reactions where they're like, oh, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you trying to do here? You know? And I'm just like, no, like, I honestly am just trying to serve my country. Like, that's it. That's all. I'm just trying to do something to make up for all the hurt and pain that I've caused. Like, that's it. Like, not trying to play any games here.
Before joining the military, had you ever had any ambitions or aspirations to go into a certain field, or?
I was going to school for exercise physiology. So I was trying to be a, you know, physiologist, anything like physical. Like I've always been a very physical person, like always exercising. So I wanted to do something that had, you know, physical aspects to it. So military did kind of fit into that box. But again, military didn't occur to me until I was approached with it, and I was like, I get to get paid to work out essentially. Of course I'll do it. You know? That's what it was like.
Did you travel anywhere with the military then? Did you go?
I did, yes.
Where were you stationed?
I was stationed, so I went to boot camp on the East Coast, and my schoolhouse was on the East Coast, and then I was stationed all my active duty years were in California. So I was at Camp Pendleton in Oceanside, California. Spent, you know, all 4 years there really, besides basic training. And then I got the opportunity to deploy. So back in 2019, I went on a deployment. I went on a MEU, and I applied to be on the female engagement team, which is, you know, female Marines, and they are trained tactically wise. What else? Basically just women that can fight. And we went and trained different branches or females in other countries' military. So the main country that I spent time in was Jordan. So I got to go to Jordan and train the Jordanian Armed Forces, the female engagement team there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a great experience. So I taught them how to fight, taught them how to shoot, taught them just military tactics that Americans use. Yeah, that was probably the coolest thing I think I've ever done.
I can imagine. Was it as someone who grew up in a family that was blacklisted from overflying and very much in their own bubble? How much of a culture shock was it to be in the Middle East?
It was interesting to see it, because like my family had always talked about it. Like there was a time when I was in middle school that they're like, we're going to move to Israel. And I was like, we're moving to Israel? Like, what? This is weird. We didn't end up doing it, obviously, but they were like trying to get us ready to like live in the Middle East. And I was like, we aren't even allowed to fly to the Middle East. Like, how are you expecting us to get there? This is weird. So as an adult being there and like in the military being there, it was like, I don't know. Yeah, it was iconic. Yeah. It was almost, I couldn't believe I was there almost. Like, I was like, this is where my family's been talking about this place forever and like never got here, but like here I am and I'm over here, you know, working for a country that they hate, and I'm teaching, all these cool things that like my family probably couldn't even comprehend to learn, but I know these things, and I'm teaching Jordanians these things, like an American teaching a Jordanian soldier how to fight. Like, I was like, they could never, like, they have no idea. So
Well, it must
cool.
be very fulfilling as well in terms of you're now passing on skills to someone, whereas originally, like you said before, it's kind of repaying or repentant for the stuff that you were reluctant to do in the past. How long did you spend before you came back then?
We left in April of 2019. We came back just before Thanksgiving of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So we're out. I went to a bunch of different countries, but the main operations that I worked on were in Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And
8 months.
Huh?
8 months.
Yeah, 8 months. Was that 8 months? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Time flew for me. So.
And so did you come back to Kansas in 2019 then?
No, came back home from deployment. So I was back in California then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I still had to finish out my contract. So I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years and 2 months active duty. The 2 months were because it was so close to the end of my contract, they had to extend my enlistment.
Mm-hmm.
So I was supposed to get out January of 2020, but I ended up getting out March of 2020. At the end of March, I lived in California a little bit longer, and then I came back home to Topeka in August of 2020. So I've been home since 2020 of August.
So you live in Topeka now. How far do you live from where you grew up then?
5 minutes.
Yeah, probably like a 5-minute drive.
Well, because obviously the way I found you was through Autumn's TikTok, with the fact that you drive there often. But there was one TikTok that stuck out to me, which was when you drove past a picket.
Yeah.
And if you're okay talking about this, you drove past a picket that had your dad and your brother in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think firstly I want to ask is, how weird was it being on the other side of the picket line?
That was like kind of an unexpected moment too. Like we were like going, we were probably going to get food or something, and it was a Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
So that's why, like, I had completely lost track of the days, and obviously Sundays they're always out there. They're out there for at least 3 pickets on a Sunday. 3 pickets back to back.
Never saw them.
Yeah, I hadn't seen them, but from what I'd heard around town, they hadn't really been out that much. So I wasn't expecting to see them. And then we're just driving down Gage, which is, the main street that they like to picket on. And I was like, oh shit, like, Autumn, look, it's my family. And she's like, what?
No way.
You're like, no. I was like, yeah, look.
And then should we do a U-turn?
Yeah, so we turned around and I drove by. And she was filming, and I was just like, yeah, that's this person. Like, they had their masks on and their coats. So it was kind of hard to see who was who. And, like, they'd grown up so much, too. So I was like, I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to know, but I can kind of assume just how, like, by who they're standing next to, how they're standing. Like, because, you grow up with these people. Like, you're so close with them. You see them every single day and just their demeanor. And you, like, learn who's who just from a distance. So I'm like, it's been how many years since I've seen my family? And I'm like, there's my dad. My dad's wearing the same coat he's had for years. So that's always so easy to see him. It's like my dad. And I don't know, I think I saw my sister. And then I was like, Amos. And Amos is my youngest brother. And I was very, very close with him. I basically was like raising that child before I left. So that was probably what, that part messed me up a lot, I think, because
talk about him a lot.
So. I guess I talk about Amos a lot. I don't know. But I don't know. It's just like my mini me. So seeing him, it was interesting because I'm like, I had always obviously been the one standing there, but now driving past it with my girlfriend, it was, it was like a whole new world, basically. Like I was looking at my old life, and I'm just like happily driving by with my new life. And I was like, Weird. It was like two different me's.
I can imagine. Was there ever any kind of desire or initial reaction to maybe make yourself known that you were driving past, or was that not an option?
I'm sure I could, like, make a big deal about, hey guys, I'm back, but they probably wouldn't pay it any mind, so I wouldn't want to waste the energy. And I do have trauma from my childhood, so I don't like to like put myself out there. Like, my friends and like my family that I have still will joke about it, because like there's like stickers, like parent of a United States Marine, like stuff like that, like, oh, we should take this and go put it on our parents' front door and knock and like run away or something. I'm like, no, like, I get it, you guys, that would be really funny, but like, for my own mental stability, I don't want to, like, I don't know, agitate them.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
I know
because
they're not gonna do anything, but like, I don't know, like, this is my life now, and like, I don't necessarily want them to be a part of that. Like, yeah.
Are they aware that you are in both a Marine and openly gay?
Yeah, apparently. So my little brother actually left a few years ago. One of my younger brothers.
Not Amos, sorry.
No, not Amos. He's still young, but yeah. My second youngest brother, Caleb, he left a few years ago, like 3 years ago maybe. And so apparently after I left, like, I did a lot of like different activities with the Equality House. Like, I went to a bunch of different fundraisers and stuff like that. I was kind of like a hot topic then with the Equality House. And so like there was this group picture that we took in front of the church for an event at the Equality House, and it was like a group kissing picture. And I was single then, like super single. But one of the guys that worked there, I think his name was Patrick. He worked at the Equality House. Long hair on a guy, which obviously is not what my family does. Men cut their hair. So I ended up just kissing the guy that worked there, like just like a friendly kiss on the lips,
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle of this picture that made it into the newspaper or something, and I'm kissing this guy with long hair, but I guess to my family they were like, oh, that's a woman, just because he has long hair, so I guess that makes him a woman. But I think that was the initial like thought. Like, when they saw that picture, they're like, yes, we knew it, Danielle's gay. Like, I wasn't even kissing a woman, but like, whatever.
That's ironic that the way they found out you were gay was by you doing the most straight thing you possibly could have done.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, but my brother told me about that. He's like, yeah, it was weird. I was like, he was telling me, he's like, if you look at the picture, you can tell it's a guy, but they automatically see you kissing someone with long hair and they're like, she's gay. I'm like, I mean, they're not wrong, but like, that's it.
Right.
Yeah, right answer, wrong work. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Do you so I mean, I'll try and wrap it up soon, because I know I have kept you for, like, it's flown by, to be fair. I've, like, for reference, like, I always have notes for like every interview I do. I've not looked down at them once because I've been enthralled with what you're saying. But so in terms of the church now, I mean, you were saying that the church was dwindling after your granddad died. Yeah. You've got people, the elders, like Scott, the former documentarian, who's obviously Steve. Sorry, not Scott.
Yeah. No, Steve.
Yeah, Steve at the head, which apparently, I mean, isn't what you don't like him very much.
No, and apparently, we actually just got this. Somehow, his whole family just got kicked out. Apparently, him, his wife, his kids. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but apparently his whole family just got kicked out.
Really? Do you know why?
Yeah. Well, I don't know why.
When did you find that out?
One of Cheryl's sons, Noah, he just left, and he was.
Yes, I saw that as well, actually, because Noah's almost one of the most recognizable ones, because he's the.
Yeah, because of the documentaries. Yes.
Yeah.
Him and Louis had a kind of a funny relationship.
Yeah, well, that's so. I mean, because Steve was almost one of the most ardent ones, and was unusual in the fact that he wasn't born into it, but he was. I mean, he was the one doing the sermons. He was almost like substitute
Yeah.
Gramps after
Yeah.
after your grandfather passed away. Yeah, no, that's who. So is that reported then, or is that just like?
I'm not sure if it's reported anywhere officially, but I mean, Autumn's checking. She's a little Google monster.
I have to tell him
What?
how you went to boot camp and you called your household as your phone call.
That's
iconic.
People. I don't know why you want to bring that up.
Because
Anyway,
you're
I think
from the
I guess she
Marines.
thinks it's funny. So in the Marine Corps, obviously, I don't know if you know that much about United States Marines, but we're like,
Only from
supposed-
films, but.
but yeah, we're supposed to be like, the best of the best Marines, But the first thing you do when you get to boot camp there is like, obviously the drill instructors are yelling at you constantly. They bring you all into this really small room and they push you up into a phone, like a phone booth, and they tell you to call a number and you have to scream at the top of your lungs a script into the phone. Doesn't matter who, you have to call somebody.
Yeah.
If they don't answer, then they make you keep calling. So I got there and I had numbers memorized to like call like my brother or somebody, but I get there and I completely blank on all the numbers that I had memorized. So I was like, what number do I call? So I called my parents' house number because that's the only number I could remember. So
Yeah.
I haven't talked to my parents in a few years, but I was like, you know what? Called my house number that I knew from my childhood. And it went to voicemail. So I'm screaming the script from the Marine Corps has written for me into the phone. So
What
my
does it
parents
say? Is it like an aggressive?
I can't remember
thing?
what the script was, but basically it was like me screaming about how I'm at Marine Corps boot camp and like, I'm gonna be trained by the best of the best. And I'm just like screaming this. So they probably have a voicemail of me from boot camp screaming into their phone. And they have no idea, no context whatsoever, just me screaming into a phone.
Would that have been when they found out you had joined the Marines then?
I'm not sure if or when they found that out. I mean, it's on my Facebook, and I know that they like to get on Facebook and like search our names. So if they look for my name, it says that I was in the Marine Corps. So I'm sure they figured it out, but
Yeah.
I don't care.
Well, I honestly, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me, because I appreciate as well that there's a lot of the sensitive topics that we've touched on and stuff like that, and I do really appreciate you opening up. What I do want to end on though, because obviously we've touched on some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But you seem very happy now.
Oh, I'm very happy.
I was about to ask, are you happy?
The world, like I cannot compare how much happier I am now than when I was there. But yeah, I'm in a little bit of pain from surgery, but I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
That's absolutely fantastic. Well, honestly, thank you so much for speaking to me.
No, thank you. Thank you.